to welcome you to the Tuesday, May 9th, 2023 Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order at 7:21. And if everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A reading of the meeting notice. This meeting is being conducted in compliance with the open meeting session that the Verona Board of Education passed a resolution at its annual reorganization meeting held on January 3rd, 2023. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Verona Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the Star Ledger, posted with the Township and the Verona Education Association. Posting of this meeting was setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Education Office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public via the Board of Education's website. Mr. Cruz, could you please call attendance?
Mr. Walker,
Present.
Mrs. Frizella,
Here.
Mrs. Farrar,
Here.
Mrs. Prisco,
Here.
Mrs. Freshy.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if there's any public to come up to the podium to speak on any action items. Seeing that there's none, we will go on to,
It's my report, I think, right? My next?
oh yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay. So first, I just want to say I went to our Wizards game. I saw some board members there. It was my first Wizards game in Verona. It was a lot of fun. There were a good number of staff members that played, and I do want to point out that Mrs. Prisco got on the court.
We're laughing with you, not at you.
I will note that Mrs. Palmarisi was first choice of the Wizards when they picked team members from our team, though. So that was really fun. It was sold out. It was very well attended. It always is. I think the record is like the tickets sell out in 3.5 minutes. So really great event, and appreciate the Council of SCAs for hosting that. It's a lot of work to put it together. I received an email from Mr. Rampola today. He would like me to urge people to, on behalf of VFI, to join them at the annual fundraising event at Caldwell College this Friday night at 12 to honor our nursing staff and our teachers at the, I guess it's the teacher toast. And they're not getting as big a turnout as they had hoped. And it is, this is a fundraiser while it is celebrating our staff during Teacher Appreciation Week. It's also a fundraiser, an important fundraiser, and VFI does a lot for our teachers and our students. One of them was last week, where Rutgers Science Explorer bus came to HBW 2 days in a row, and our students went out and they actually got to use simulated DNA technology to determine the genetic makeup of an unknown species. Really great activity for kids. They used real equipment that would be used in a real forensic lab. They weren't using DNA, they were using dyes, but the process was the same. And it was really an unbelievable opportunity for them in middle school to practice with these techniques that are used in forensic science. And that was sponsored by a VFI grant. So given that it is Teacher Appreciation Week, I just want to give a public shout out to all of the educational staff who go above and beyond every day for our students and their families, our teachers. And while it's Teacher Appreciation Week, I want to point out that we have other educators in our buildings that are also included in that. So our child study team members, our media specialists, librarian media specialists, our technology people, our nurses, our direct service providers, those people that provide speech and language services to students, OT and PT, our paraprofessionals, without whom we would not be able to function in many of our classes, our support staff, which include our administrative assistants, our custodial and maintenance staff, and our administrators. And it was Principal Appreciation Day last week. So just lumping them all in, working very hard to make sure that our students get the best of what we can give them. The climate survey was administered and it has closed. We just giving the board an overview of participation, and I will put together, Mrs. Ackerman and I will put together a presentation once we really sit down and it's a lot of information. So we have to sit down and look. The first thing we did was we looked at, is there parity in those common indicators that are asked between students, staff, and community members? Are they close? Do they have the same lens? And I will say for most of our schools, that was something you can see right away, that there is similarities among how our students feel, how the staff feels, and how our parents and caregivers feel in those topics that are shared across all of those groups. Not all the topics are shared across all those groups. So we had 108 students in grades 3 and 4 at FN Brown, 25 staff that responded, and 85 parents, caregivers that responded. At Brookdale, it's a much smaller school, 39 students, 18 staff, 38 parents. At Forest, 33 students, 22 staff, and 64 parents, caregivers. At Lanning, 46 students, 21 staff, and 88 parents and caregivers. So at HBW, because HBW has the highest population of students, and because you're surveying grades 5 and 6, 7, 8, rather than just 2 grades, they actually surveyed 632 students at HBW, 48 staff members, and 122 parents and caregivers took part. The high school surveyed 542 students, 33 staff members, and 98 parents and caregivers. So as I said, we're right now just looking at the data and picking it apart. This platform is really nice because it allows you to kind of drill down on specific questions under a topic. It allows you to look at, if a ethnicity or a race of people that identified as one race or another felt differently about a question. It allows us to go male versus female and look to see if there's any inconsistencies. It's very interesting. Right now, I'm just trying to manage. It's a lot of information. So we'll get it all put into a slide deck, and we'll present that to the board at an upcoming meeting. I received an email last night from Dr. Grip from Statistical Forecasting. He sent me a draft of the demographic study last night. It's 59 pages long. I'm somewhere right in the middle of it. I haven't gone through all of it. It's very interesting. I will share that with the board as well. Dr. Grip will come out to present the findings to the board at an upcoming meeting as well. And the strategic plan is, I have the poster ready to go out to the community. We're working on the action plans, which I know doesn't have to be by June 30th, but the other piece is done. The only thing that's holding up its unveiling is that we are working on our mission statement and our vision statement. And so that's in the works right now. I can share with the board as well, like where we are with that. And the discussion around it will continue. We did NJSLA and AP testing over the past 2 weeks. AP started last week. It ends this Friday. Elementary schools tested well with NJSLA with very few irregularities, which is what you want. We did have some glitches today at HBW, but having Mrs. Kohler and Mrs. Simmons in the district now, understanding how to better manage some of the accommodations, for students. They're going to be meeting with child study team and the teachers to make sure that we have all of that cleaned up for future administrations. And I spoke to Mr. Galbachek late today, and he has gone through everything, and they are very ready for tomorrow's ELA first session. AP testing is also going well. We had a glitch, not just us, the entire nation. AP Chinese went down. It's one of the only tests that is not a paper and pencil test. It's an online test, and it crashed for everybody taking it on that day last week. So again, that just doesn't hurt our students or any students. They'll be able to take it again at a different time. The regular administration ends this Friday. We have makeups next week. And then the week of the 22nd through the 26th, NJSLA will start at the high school. Just finishing up with some very good news. If you recall, maybe a month ago, I reported that our HBW students participated in the state National History Day competition at Seton Hall University, and that we had some teams that did really well. We were just notified that Hafiza Ahmed qualified for the national competition in Delaware. And her presentation was about Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, who was the first Black woman to earn a medical degree in the United States. Cece Manis was also named as an alternate, so she has an opportunity potentially to go as well. And to ice that cake with two students that are qualifying for great things, Maggie Manning, the teacher who teaches that particular section at HBW, one of our history teachers, our social studies teacher, was honored by the National History Day organization as the Patricia Baring New Jersey Teacher of the Year for her innovative teaching of history within and outside the classroom. So congratulations to Hafiza, to Cece, and to Mrs. Manning on those great accomplishments. Very proud. Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Really quick question. I didn't jot down all the numbers from the participants of the survey. Yeah, but overall, was your feeling that we got a good response? Are we going to have a good baseline going forward with these?
We got a good response from our teachers and we got a good response from our students and our teachers, partly because our students were, unless you opted out, were like captive audience.
Yeah.
But you really optional is difficult because you don't get good data.
Yeah.
So yes, we got a good response from our students. We got a good response from our teachers. It was a good number of staff members that took part. We did let them know that it's important for them, especially with me being new here, this was a completely anonymous survey. We have no way of knowing who said what. It doesn't even come to us first. Rutgers does all the work on it. So we just get final data in it was good
Yeah,
numbers.
it seemed like it was
Yeah.
good numbers. I just didn't know.
Yeah,
if that's just me being optimistic,
No,
or we
I think-
actually will have a nice baseline to go forward with this.
And I think parents now, at least in my experience, are more willing to participate in a survey since COVID than they were before. We, at least in my experience, we would put a survey out to parents in either of my former districts, and we would get very little response. I mean, it wasn't even valid enough.
Yeah,
parent
so this is
responses.
enough to be a
This is-
valid
yeah,
and
and-
have a good sample.
Mrs. Ackerman and I are actually going to be with the Rutgers folks to go over some of how to read the survey and how to pull information out of it, and actually actions going forward. So they're not just a survey group. They actually are a school climate initiative. So there's a lot of actions to if you're seeing a trend in your district or in a specific school in your district, these are the actions you can take to remedy that, to make that better. Because what we did see, and this was across every school from the kids, that we do have an issue with kids not treating each other nicely. And I think that's no news to,
No news, but it's validated.
no news, but validation.
Yep.
So they have strategies that we can employ, and they support us in more than just providing the survey to us.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Ms. Shahado, student representative.
Okay, so the Rutgers Climate Survey was administered during the school day, Wednesday, April 26th. on the student side of things, I felt that it went really well. It was very well organized, very efficient. You get to school 5 minutes in and out. Very easy, very simple process, very straightforward. Yeah, so the length of the survey itself, that felt like very reasonable to me. It felt like that was well done. Felt super reasonable to me, and even like thinking about like a sixth grader or something like that, I felt like it like makes sense across grade levels. There were some that like obviously they like account for this in terms of creating the survey, but some questions where it's like very vague, and I'm sure that the Rutgers people are careful about analyzing stuff like that.
Yeah, I know which ones
Yeah.
you're talking about. Sometimes they'll say,
Like, do you feel safe in school? Where it's like there's a million different ways you can
right.
approach that.
Or one of the questions will say, do you feel supported by your teachers? Well, for the most part, yes, but there's that one, the
Yeah.
kids had trouble with that. And I'll be honest with you, some of our teachers said, are you supported by administration? Well, there's lots of layers of administration in a school district, right? Is it building administration? Is it central office administration, a combination of, but that's a difficult.
So there was no open end.
No open-ended.
Piece. It was just
Mm-mm.
all, okay.
Yeah.
Good to know. Thanks.
But yeah, the administration and overall, I felt that was really well done. Just like looking at, keeping that in mind going forward, because that's just a survey. But in the last strategic planning meeting on April 27th, announcements were posted online and on the morning announcements prior to the meeting at the high school. That same night, the jazz band had their performance. They did a fantastic job. That was an absolute delight. I had. And the Spotlight Players also had their One Acts Festival on May 5th. 3 student written, 1 student adapted play, and then 2 others with student directors. So very fun. And AP testing began May 1st. Primary testing continued through May 12th with makeups afterwards. And today, some student poll workers were participating in the election today. So they were helping out at the high school, I believe, as well as at other polling locations nearby. NJSLA testing will be administered going forward at the high school, with freshmen taking math and ELA portions and juniors taking the science portion. And the senior capstone program will begin next week, I believe. And that's it for me on my end.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any questions?
I think, I know myself, I was worried that the survey would feel cumbersome to students. So I really appreciate you sharing your experience, that you heard that it was good. And Ms. Giuseppe, I think in that same vein, thank you, because I think that the data will be really good moving forward. Thank you.
I just want to throw in, because Reese and Ms. Giuseppe talked about student achievement. So I just want to throw in there the DECA team. They ended up going down to Florida to compete, and it was sophomores Shayna Kogan and Alexa Polanco were representing the VHS Education Club at the National Conference in Orlando. So it's just awesome that our students on all levels are just getting themselves out there and getting this experiential experiences. It's hands-on and it's awesome. So thank you. And congratulations to those students and that faculty advisor for that club. It's a lot of work.
Mr. Orr. Yeah, Mr. Orr.
Thank you. Now on to committee reports. We have athletics first. Mr. Walker, would you like to report on that, or would you like me to take that one?
You know the answer to that.
You got it. So we met on May 4th. It was a short report. Spring sports are, up and running. All sports teams are doing well. Our Verona baseball team has its rivalry game this Thursday. Unfortunately, they normally play that game up at Jackal Stadium, up at Montclair State, but that field is under, I guess, construction. So they are playing that game this Thursday, and they're playing it at Caldwell. So they're going to be playing that at 6:30 at Caldwell High School. And let's see what else. They Sports Booster Awards will take place on June 20th, and that'll be out on our football field, I believe. as long as it's nice, right? Unless it's going to be inside. Field trips will be, there's a field trip on June 8th to the Museum of the City of New York and Chinatown and on Canal Street with Miss Sepsi, and there's about 7 students attending that. And then for personnel tonight, we are on for approval. We have the head girls basketball coach. We will be approving Coach Pat Coyle. Miss Coyle is a Verona community member. She comes with 30 years coaching experience, and she has coached from 6th grade to the professional level. So congratulations to her. And also we are Miss Jordan, our HBW phys ed teacher. She will be also coaching our JV volleyball team. So she is on here tonight as well. And I believe we are still looking for cross country, right? Yeah, a cross country coach and JV. They're interviewing for that, JV cheer. And let's see, I believe, Mr. Waka, did I miss anything on athletics?
I think you did a good job.
Well, thank you.
I'm excited about the new coaching hires too.
Any questions? Thanks. Then we have governance and policy. Ms. Frizella, would you like to?
Sure, I'll take that one. There's a long list of policies that's on the agenda for this meeting. Most of the updates are mandatory updates or mandatory updates that should have been made a few years ago. So there's not really much in terms of substantive changes to most of them. The one that we did spend a bit of time discussing in the committee was the school district security policy, which is, it's just a policy. There is no regulation that goes with it. We did discuss perhaps we need a regulation to go along with it. If we're going to propose that to the board, we'll, obviously do it through the committee and then have it approved through the board. But it is, it is just something that we felt might be necessary to help with our school security overall, just to have a regulation that really enforces the policy. And then, that's really, I don't think we've discussed much else because it was a pretty short meeting. We were only able to meet late yesterday, so we didn't really have a whole lot of time. But again, most of the updates are just mandatory.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Now I will go back to public comments on agenda action items. Anyone? Seeing none. Now we will go to discussion items. Does anyone have any comments or discussion items that they would like to mention or discuss at this time?
I just want to thank all the people who did take the time to write. We got a lot of emails this week about school security and security. So I do want to just thank whichever side you were on. I'm not saying, I just want to thank the people that really took some time and thought and, wrote some very nice emails to us on both sides. So thanks for participating.
Yes, it is important. Thank you.
So one other agenda item that might be worthy of a discussion, we can either do it now or when you go to vote on it, it's up to you, is, and because I've spoken to a lot of parents, Mr. Cogdill and the high school administration has met with the Verona music parents, and just to make sure that the right information is out there. You'll see on the agenda, we are reducing a position in instrumental music at Verona High School. But in looking at, Mr. Cogdill has done above and beyond actually his data analysis on lessons, what we're doing now, on what we would potentially lose if we were to do this. And the reason for this has to do with just numbers. We have spoken here in these meetings many times this year about a need for increased number of special educators, an increased number of other teachers. And I want to point out, we are not adding any classroom teachers in at the elementary level, although we have 5 sections across 4 schools that are starting right now, moving into September with 24 and 25 students in them. And we have a first grade that's got 25. So, and this budget does not include increased teachers to reduce that. But what we are seeing is a reduction in numbers of our instrumental music program. So Dr. Fernari had the forethought to take the part-time instrumental music position and make it full-time, with the caveat that the instrumental teachers offer some electives, and that way we can pull kids that are not currently in band into love of music and interest maybe more students into the program and grow the program. Unfortunately, that did not pan out. Those sections were not well requested by our students and are too small to run. We will run a few of them with just about 10 students. One of them has 8. We'll bring those to the board, obviously, because our policy says the board should see those ahead of time. But with our current instrumental music staff, after we abolish that position, we can still provide excellent instrumental music instruction in this building, utilizing the current staff from across the district. And Mr. Cogdell took a look at the number of students receiving lessons currently during the school day, because I think that's one of the biggest concerns that we're hearing from parents. How are we going to be able to continue to offer lessons? So looking at the 76 students this year that are in band, over a 4-day rotation, actually across the 154 days that we've had already this year, the lowest number of lessons a student has received is 1. The highest has been 8, with the average across 76 students at 2.7 lessons so far in 154 days. So we have no concern keeping that number because it's a very low number. And that actually, the median is actually 3, so that it corresponds. We can utilize, and no names because I haven't had the discussion with the middle school instrumental music teachers yet, or the elementary instrumental music teachers, but we do have to, as a superintendent and as a board, I have to look at our resources and balance that with our needs. And we have an increase of 2.5 special education teachers that we need going into next year. That's a non-negotiable. That's under administrative code. We have to provide that. And after meeting with the gifted and talented parent group that had reached out to all of you and met with me, we do have an obligation to provide some level of gifted and talented services. So we're looking to hire a part-time gifted and talented teacher. And I know that's a Band-Aid that doesn't have much sticky on it, but it is a step in the right direction in looking at growing that program. So between the 2.5 special education teachers at 1 at the elementary, 1.5 at the high school, the half-time gifted and talented teacher. And as a result of student participation in their own scheduling, our visual arts department is bursting at the seams. We currently have 3 visual arts teachers. We have enough sections being requested next year by the students at the high school to be 4 teachers with a 6-period section. So we are going to need to hire an art teacher as well. So I was hoping, and I think Mr. Cogdell was hoping, and I know our instrumental music teachers were hoping that those sections filled and we were able to keep that position intact. We cannot continue to keep that program for 44 students because we can give an excellent program with the staff that we currently have. And these are the hardest decisions, and not a decision I want to make in my first year, but one that is prudent at this juncture. I had to say, I'm sorry, I was laughing. No one got it. I'm the only one that's laughing at that. That was a Saturday Night Live thing from years ago.
I just have a quick question. In terms of the enrollment in instrumental music in the middle school, are we seeing is there a downward trend there? Is an upward, like, are we?
We have 185 students in the instrumental music at the middle school. We have and this is typical as well. And I want to also say that this is also post-COVID. COVID plays a role here. Although we haven't had COVID restrictions in band for 2 years now, so it should start to get better. We have 185. There is a reduction. There's a smaller 8th grade group this year than we've seen in the past, and only 5 of those kids in 8th grade are registered or have requested band in the high school. So we're going to do some active recruiting, but I also want to say, even if we get another 20 or 30 kids, it still doesn't warrant another full-time staff member. And, as a parent of a child who's a musician, I understand the value of music instruction, but it's not something we can afford right now with this budget.
Thank you. I do want to add one thing real quick. I meant to mention it last week at the meeting when we were doing our resolutions. We had a resolution on for the retirement of Cheryl Slabursky. And I forgot to mention that I just wanted to say congratulations to her publicly, for her years of service. So congratulations. I think we all want to say congratulations to Cheryl for her years of service to the
25.
district,
25
25 years of
years.
service. So congratulations to Cheryl for, I think her last day is the end of the school. year,
Yeah,
the
and June 30th.
June 30th.
Yeah.
So congratulations to Cheryl. Sorry, we didn't mention it last meeting. But does anyone else have anything for the end for discussion items?
Essex County does something really nice that I was not used to in Morris County. They have a superintendent's secretarial luncheon, and that was last week. So we got to celebrate Cheryl helping me navigate my first year as superintendent here, and also the sadness of her leaving. Good, happy for her,
Oh,
right? Happy for her.
Very
but-
nice. All right. So now we will go on to Mr. Cruz. If I need a motion to approve resolution number 1. Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs. Frizella. Any discussion? None? Roll call?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Freshy,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve personnel resolutions number 1.1 through 2.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Ferrara, seconded by
Be me.
Mrs. Frizella. Any discussions? None? Roll call?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Freshy,
Yes.
motion carries.
I need a motion to approve education resolutions number 1 through 12.1. Motion by Mrs. Rosella,
Second.
second by Mrs. Freshy. Any discussion?
I just have a real quick question. On 1.2, on the video film adoptions, it does have a course, all math and comp sci. But when a board approves a video, is it only restricted to that course? Or is it approved for the district that if it has overlap into another course, if a teacher sees value, they would be able to use it somewhere else?
There's overlap once it's approved. I mean, I wouldn't say overlap at the grades. If it's approved at the high school, it should stay.
At the, yeah, but I'm saying if a history teacher saw value in one of these films, it's not just approved for the math and comp sci. It's
Right, and
approved by,
Not
the board.
Approves it by course. They
Gotcha.
approve it by grade level usually.
right, oh, okay, yep. So that was it.
Say, I had Donald Duck in Math Magic Land when I was in 6th grade, so I'm so glad that it's still out.
Who remembers Nemo the Magnificent Duck? Remember Nemo?
No,
Oh, it was a Disney film. It was about the flag, about the circulatory system. Emo the Magnificent. Yep.
I remember Slim Goodbody, but I don't remember. Remember that guy?
Yes.
Sorry.
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Can I please have a motion to approve athletics and curricular resolutions 1.1 through 1.3?
So moved.
Second
Motion by
that.
Mr. Walker, seconded by Mrs. Farrar. Any questions? Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll?
Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. I need a motion to approve finance resolutions 1 through 3.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Freshy, seconded by Mrs.
I'll
Frizella,
second it.
by Mrs. Frizella. Any questions? Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Need a motion to approve governance and policies resolutions 1 through 3.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Ferrara, second by Mrs. Freshy. Any questions? Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. And then we have some addendums. So I need a motion, please, to approve athletics and co-curricular resolution number 1.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Waka, seconded by Mrs. Rosella. Any questions, comments? Mr. Cruz?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Committee of the whole, I need a motion for resolution number 1. Motion for resolution number 1 by Mrs. Brazella, seconded by
Second.
Mrs. Ferrara. Any questions?
Nope.
Mr. Cruz, can you please call roll?
Sure. Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes,
Mrs. Freshy.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you.
That resolution with the school boards, right?
Yes.
Now we are on to public comment. Anyone wishing from the public to address? If there's no one here, we will move on to our next scheduled meeting will be held on Tuesday, May 23rd, beginning with confidential at 6 PM, followed by public session at 7 PM in the public, in the Verona High School Learning Commons. Meeting is adjourned. It is
You need a
8
motion.
PM. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting by Mr. Waka, second by Mrs. Ferrara. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is
Aye.
8 PM.